All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Beef Upfront podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, joined alongside Joe Kometz for our weekly show, transitioning from college football now into the college basketball world. With the crazy regular season behind us, everything that happened with the playoff committee, and we still will be touching on the big games with the college football playoff, of course. But Joe, as always, welcome back. This is our first big Saturday of college basketball, and really excited to dive into it.
Yeah, Coyle, me as well. As always, thank you for having me on. Very excited. A bunch of huge games. I think this is something that, like, college basketball as a whole has gotten better at over the years. Like, this is the first weekend without wall-to-wall college football. Like, yes, you have the Army-Navy game, but besides that, this is where you take advantage. You have these big-time matchups for a bunch of eyes to see on a Saturday now. Instead of sitting watching college football, we can watch a bunch of great college basketball games. This is prime multiple TV season. Football, sometimes when you have the multiple TVs, sometimes you get a little lost in the sauce, but basketball is nonstop, like go, go, go. If you have three TVs, it's constant stimulation, constant action. So I'm very excited. Like you said, first big weekend, bunch of great games we're going to talk about. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so every week here we do the 10 best games of the weekend between Friday and Sunday. And this was a really hard list to narrow down. Like there was about 20 games that we could have previewed that are pretty noteworthy and big time matchups. But before we hit the hardwood, real quick, we'll touch on Army Navy, as that is the lone college football game of the weekend. Had a chance to go to it last year. It was a really cool experience. But Joe, give me your pick real quick. Army Navy. Army is a 3-point favorite, over under 27.5, 3 o'clock kickoff on CBS.
Yeah, Quill, this is a bucket list game for me. I definitely would like to go one year. I'm going Army 20, Navy 13. So I'm going to take Army minus the 3. I'm going to take over 27.5. This score is plus 10,000, exact score bet. Last year, I predicted the score correctly, even though I couldn't get anybody out of the state because I was in New York at the time to bet it. So that sucked. It was like plus 9,000 last year when I predicted the score. This is going to be a low scoring game, but I think 27.5 is low. Like, and I know this is Army Navy, and I wouldn't be shocked if this is like a 7-3 game, but I think I can get 28 points out of this game. I think Jacoby Buchanan's going to score a touchdown. He's their fullback. He's a senior. It's his last game. You're going to see a pass for 5 yards. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. So give me Army. Great game. Bullshit that the committee, or not the bowl committee, not the playoff committee. Both these teams are 5-6. The winning team gets to be 6-6. They should kick out Minnesota for a bowl spot. Minnesota's 5-7. Un-American that Army or Navy will not be playing for a bowl game.
Yeah, real quick for me, I'm going to go with Army as well. I have them winning 17-10, so Army minus 3. In the under of 27.5 hitting there. I believe it's 16 of the last 18 have gone under. Took the over last year and it hit thanks to overtime, but always, as you were talking about, is more of a low-scoring game, so I'll go with the trend there and take the under. I don't think we'll see 2 overs in a row. All right, that's it for football for the week. We go to college basketball now. Starting on Saturday at noon, you said it best, Joe, wall-to-wall college basketball all day, and it's going to be a really good slate to have everyone's eyes on for really the first time, with the sole focus pretty much being on college basketball. You have number 20, Illinois at 7-1, at number 17, Tennessee, who's 5-3, a noon tip-off on CBS. We use the Haslam metrics projections due to not having the lines and the spreads out yet, due to being a couple days out still. But Haslam metrics is projecting this one as a 74-67 win by Tennessee. So Tennessee minus 6.5 and the over-under of 140.5. Joe, Tennessee basketball is back. Well, what are your thoughts on them this year?
Tennessee, I always hate come the postseason, but this is the time of year where Tennessee shines. And this game being at Tennessee is going to make all the difference. Illinois coming off a huge win against FAU at a neutral site, but it's tough to follow that up now, going a big non-conference game for both of these teams on the road. Tennessee with 2, tough losses in the Maui Invitational could really use a win at Illinois to help bolster their non-conference resume as we are inching closer to conference play. That being said, I'm going to go Tennessee 71, Illinois 63. So I'm going to take Tennessee to cover the spread of 6.5. Even though I think it'll end up being a little bit closer, but still I like them at 6.5 as well. I'm going to go under 140.5. Tennessee, one thing, when you're watching Tennessee play basketball, just take the under. This is a team that doesn't like to score a lot of points. I forget who they were playing. It was during the SEC ACC Challenge. but
North Carolina.
they got down big early, and I looked at my dad. I'm like, "This game's over." He goes, "You can't say that. It's the first half." I'm like, "No, the way Tennessee plays basketball, they are not coming back from this," and they didn't, obviously. But if Tennessee can keep it close and make it ugly, I think they'll pull away late. So give me Tennessee here.
Yeah, Illinois has really impressed me to start the year. Terrence Shannon, I think he's going to end up on the first team All Big Ten at the end of the season. He's such a tough cover because he's such a good downhill driver. It's hard to stay in front of him. I think he could propel this Illinois team to being one of their better teams in the past few years since Kofi and Io left. I think he can make them a top 10 team this season. And as much as we bash on Tennessee over these past few years in basketball, and we like to fade them come tournament time and big games, they're only 5-3 to start the year, but I'm probably the most confident in this team than usual because this team actually has some guys that can score the ball. They're still playing great defense. Besides that one game against North Carolina, that was a bit of an outlier game, but the offense has taken a big leap this year. Dalton Knecht in the lineup, he's a big time transfer they got. He's been playing really well. He hurt his ankle in that UNC game, but he's already back, so they avoided a big miss there. Tennessee scored 70 or more in 6 of their 8 games. And I think early on, while they're still getting adjusted to this new type of style of play where they're looking to actually score a lot of points instead of relying on their defense so much, it's had some growing pains in the win-loss column, but I think long-term it's really going to benefit them. They might not get as high of a seed. They might be like a 5 or a 6 this year instead of up there as a 3 or a 4, but I think it's going to benefit them come tournament time because if they need to lock down and play really good defense, they can do that. Or if they have to go and outscore a team, they're able to do that as well. So I really like what this Tennessee team has looked like in the early going, despite being 5-3. And I think long-term they have a good ceiling, but I do like them to win this game, but I will take Illinois to take it close. Tennessee is still one of the best home court advantages in college basketball. I'll go Tennessee 68, Illinois 65. So Illinois plus a 6.5 and under 140.5. All right, second game, not one of the best games, probably number 10 on our top 10 list, but I'm going to be in attendance at this one, so looking forward to it. Number 16, Kentucky at 6-2, coming to Philly to play 6-4 Penn at the Wells Fargo Center. 12 o'clock tip on ESPN2. Haslam's projecting this one as an 82-74 Kentucky win. So go Kentucky minus 7.5 and over under 155.5 there.
I think this is actually going to be a pretty close game. I'm going Kentucky 78, Penn 75. I'm going to take Penn plus the 7.5, going under 155.5. This is just a weird spot for Kentucky. Kentucky coming off an upset loss at home to UNC Wilmington. You know, their next 2 games coming up are North Carolina and Louisville, 2 massive games as they're heading into, conference play. That's what, a lot of these teams are, heading towards at the end of the month. And Penn, is a team. Penn did beat Villanova. Now that, who knows if that might not be saying a whole lot because Villanova hasn't looked great. They also lost to Drexel, lost to Kansas State the other night in the Big East Big 12 Challenge. But this is going to be a game, Penn playing at Wells Fargo in Philly, a pseudo home game. There'll still probably be a good amount of Big Blue Nation there. But I think this is going to be a game Penn could keep it close. I don't think they're going to win the game, but I think Penn can keep it within that 7.5. I don't think it'll be 7.5. It'll probably be a little bit more, but I like Penn to cover. Over under, I have no clue. The one thing, it's our first college basketball show. Coyle is definitely at this point way more in tap with the pulse of college basketball than I am. I'm kind of firing from the hip here with my score projections, but give me Kentucky to win this game close.
Yeah, one thing I actually like in this game a lot, if it is at this 155.5, is the over. Penn just played against LaSalle last week at the Wells Fargo Center too and put up 91 points. So this is a team that can score some points, and they're playing a Kentucky team where if they want to keep up in this game, Kentucky's averaging 91.8 points per game, 5th most in the country. So I'd be very surprised also if Kentucky's only a 7.5 point favorite. I know it's on the road. I think they'll probably be more so a 10 or 11 point favorite. I think they're going to win this game and win it pretty easy. But if it is, I'm definitely going to take the 7.5 and the over 155.5, probably parlay both of those. I think this is a track meet style of game where Penn, if you maybe want to look at them like first half spread, but I think Kentucky's talent and athleticism will eventually take over at the end of the day. So I'm going to go Kentucky 85, Penn 72. So Kentucky minus 7.5 and over 155.5. All right, we got a neutral site game in this one with Alabama at 6-2 at number 4 Purdue, the neutral site. It's playing in Ontario, Canada. Purdue's 8-1, 130 tip on Fox. Purdue projected to win this one 83-77. So we'll go Purdue minus 6.5 there and over under 159.5.
Yeah, they're playing this game up in Toronto, which it's weird. So I'm like, oh, they must be playing wherever the Raptors play. They're not. They're playing somewhere else. But I'm going to go Purdue pretty comfortably in this one. I got Purdue 86, Bama 73. I just think this season is going to be, the story of Zach Edey dominating college basketball. Now, come tournament time, once again, it's Purdue, so who knows what's going to happen there. But in the regular season, I just don't see Bama, being able to stop Zach Edey. I think he'll have another, like a quiet night for Edey. He's like 20 and 10. Like he rolls out of bed and gets 20 and 10, kind of like your boy Jahlil Okafor back in the day. But I like Purdue here just because of that. I think Zach Edey's going to dominate. Like I said, still I haven't watched a lot of Bama. Watch a couple games Purdue, when they were out in Maui. But give me the Boilermakers here. Big statement win for Mark Panter and those guys going into conference play. Well, they already started conference play, I guess, technically, because they lost to Northwestern. But
yeah, that's another thing about this weekend. It's one of the last, major kind of chances for some of these teams to get some non-conference wins because we're already at the beginning of December. Like these teams are already like 8-9 games in, most of them. So we're really starting to get into league play here. Some of these teams, they have some big chances to get some non-conference wins to boost that resume, but I'll keep it short and simple on this one. Purdue has Zach Edey. Bama doesn't. They don't have anyone to contain him. If they put Grant Nelson on him, I think he's going to eat him alive. He's too skinny. Bama also doesn't have a stud like a Brandon Miller type where, all right, if Zach Edey's going to go out there and have 35, Brandon Miller's able to go and consistently answer on the other end. They're lacking that this year. I think we've seen that out of the gates where they've struggled against some of the better teams they've played. And Zach Edey in Canada, too. This is where he's from. I think it's going to be a game that he wants to show out. He'll probably have a lot of fans up there. If you're in his state that allows taking player prop points, I would take Zach Edey's over in this one as well. I think he's going to have a big day, and I like Purdue to win this one pretty comfortably. I'm going to take him 80-70, so Purdue minus 6.5 and under 159.5. All right, we go to Arizona now with number 23 Wisconsin, 7-2 at number 1 Arizona, 7-0, 315 on ESPN. Zona projected to win 80-71, so Arizona minus 8.5, over under 150.5. Joe, Arizona number 1 in the country. How impressed have you been by them, and do you think they'll keep it rolling here?
I've been very impressed by Arizona Coyle. Last year, I picked them to win the national title. We all know what happened losing to Princeton, which actually turns out to be a pretty decent loss. Princeton undefeated right now, too, still, I believe. Yep. Princeton off to a great start.
But I really St. Joe's on Sunday. Big one.
Actually, a very big game, especially for St. Joe's. I think St. Joe's off to a pretty good start, too, right?
Yeah, 7-2, I believe, overall. One of those losses at Kentucky in overtime, the other one to your Lions of Texas A&M Commerce.
How could I forget? I didn't know where you were going with the Lions there, but yeah, that's a big non-conference game too. But I'm going to go Arizona here pretty big. I've been very impressed, Coyle, back to your question before with Arizona so far. I'm obviously a little biased towards UConn, but I think it's Arizona and UConn. Arizona, UConn, Kansas, Purdue are kind of the four, clear-cut, favorites right now. Obviously, that's the beauty of the tournament because that all gets erased. But right now, I wouldn't want to play any of those four teams. I really like Arizona in this one, especially being at home. Wisconsin's off to a pretty good start, though. It seems like they're kind of back to where they were a couple of years ago, or they're at least getting back. Currently in the top 5 right now. Big wins back-to-back off against Marquette and at Michigan State. Kind of the same thing as I was saying with Illinois before, though. Tough to go, a road game at Arizona. I'm going to go Wildcats 88, Badgers 70. Going to take Arizona, cover that 8.5. Going to take the over 150.5. Really like the over in this one. That being said, I just think Arizona is the more complete team. I do think they're going to have a really strong year. I think they're poised for a deep run in the tournament.
Yeah, I found this new website recently. I think you would love it almost as much as I do. But you can sort all these wild stats. I'm looking now. So since Tommy Lloyd took over in 2021 as the head coach of Arizona, they have the 5th best record in college hoops at home, 37-2. They've won 94.9% of his home games. You can sort through anything. You could sort through since 2003 who has the best home record in college basketball or whatever sport you want. It's a really cool website, teamrankings.com. But I really like this Arizona team too, Joe. I had them in the beginning of the season as one of my Final Four teams. This is exactly the type of team too that Wisconsin will want to avoid come tournament time because this is their ultimate kryptonite, a team that can go up and down the floor and score 90 points. Arizona's averaging 93.4 points per game, third best in the country. And after a slow start by Wisconsin, they've been really playing well over these past couple weeks. They just beat Marquette last Saturday, one of the best teams in the country. And then they beat Michigan State, which is never easy despite Michigan State's bad start. So I think they might be due for a little bit of a letdown in this one. Arizona have been rolling to start the year. Not only are they undefeated straight up, but they're also 7-0, a perfect record against the spread. They have one of the best home court advantages in the country, like we talked on. I think that they're going to keep it going here. I'll go Arizona 84, Wisconsin 68. So Zona minus 8.5, and over of 150.5. All right, we go to the Big 12 SEC now. These two teams will be playing each other in the SEC next year. I remember this game on this exact week last year too, and I think Arkansas wound up rolling them. But that's 6-3 Arkansas at number 19 Oklahoma, who's 8-0. 4 o'clock kick or tip off on ESPN2. Oklahoma projected to win 77-69. So Oklahoma minus 7.5 and over under 145.5.
I'm really glad that Porter Moser in year 2 is really getting Oklahoma rolling here. Last year Oklahoma was one of those teams, Coyle. Seems like the Big 12 gets one of them every year. Last year they had a ton.
Yeah.
Oklahoma was like 13-14, but they were still like on the bubble because the Big 12 just had that many quality wins. But it's good to see Oklahoma, really taking advantage of the non-conference. 8-0 undefeated. They smacked Providence. I watched a little bit of that game the other night. But give me Oklahoma here, 69-65. Once again, kind of just going with the home teams here to start. I think Arkansas is going to cover 7.5. I think that's kind of a big number, especially with Arkansas has the talent and the capability to go beat Duke. I think they'll be able to hang with Oklahoma. I'm going under 145.5. Ever since that one mishap, Coyle, with the Florida State football game, now I keep like triple checking when I'm saying it to make sure I get the right total. Pretty sure I'm good here with under 145.5. But I'm just taking Oklahoma. No real rhyme or reason. Just think the Sooners at home have a real big opportunity here. They get North Carolina coming up. Besides that, 3 cupcakes heading into conference play. Could really use this win in the back pocket.
Yeah, Arkansas is just one of those teams now with the amount of transfers that come in and out of college basketball. They're one of the teams that use the transfer portal the most, and they're one of those teams that is just loaded with talent. But with relying on the portal so much, it's always a new roster. It takes them some time to get going. They had a couple bad losses early on. They lost to UNC Greensboro, I believe. But then, as evidence of last week against Duke, they find a way to kind of right the ship, get all these guys, these talented players coming together as one. And then by the tournament time, they're a dangerous team. That win against Duke last week is probably a springboard for this team. If Arkansas gets in the tournament, they're going to make a run. Musselman's made this program into a Sweet 16 quality team every year. I believe 3 straight Sweet 16s he's had them in. And Oklahoma has been off to an awesome start too. One of the surprise teams in the sport. 8-0 straight up, 6-2 against the spread. They've been taking care of their business. I think they're in a spot, though, where they could be due for a loss. I do like what I've seen from Oklahoma. I've watched them a couple times this year, but I think this Arkansas team is more athletic and just more talented at the end of the day. I think it's going to give Oklahoma some problems here and maybe give them a slice of humble pie a bit, where Arkansas is kind of like, all right, we're really starting to take off, and Oklahoma needs to step back a little bit because they're not that quite good. Kind of like I'm looking at this game kind of like what Marquette did to Texas last night, where they're benefiting from this ranking, but they really haven't played that many quality teams, beaten that many quality or played that quality game. So I think Arkansas is going to go to Oklahoma and pull off the upset here. I'm going to go Arkansas 75, Oklahoma 71. So Arkansas plus 7.5. I love that if that's the actual number, and the over of 145.5. I believe Arkansas is 8-1 to the over this year. So make sure to look at that play as well. All right, this looks like this just feels like this would be like a college football playoff Final Four type game or some bowl game. But number 24, Clemson at 8-0 at TCU, who's 7-0. 4 o'clock tip on FS1. Clemson projected to win this one on the road here, 75-73. So we go Clemson minus 1.5, over under 147.5.
I'm going Clemson 78, TCU 71. So I'm going to take Clemson to cover that spread. I'm going to go over here, like the over in this game. Clemson is a team that has played some really good mid-majors to start the season, has a win at Bama. They beat Pitt on the road. They beat South Carolina at home. Coyle, I'll save TCU's schedule for you so you can talk about that. But I think Clemson is one of those teams that is actually battle-tested. Winthrop, UAB, Davidson, Boise State, even if, they might not be ending up having the best years, you play those 4 like in the non-conference. There's not that many teams that would sign up for playing 4 decent non-power schools because, that's just really good competition. There's a good chance we could see 3, maybe even 4 of those teams. Maybe not UAB going over to the American now, but it wouldn't shock me if you get Winthrop, Davidson, and Boise State in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson, getting that non-conference experience is very big. Granted, they played all them at home, but doesn't really matter. Quality team's a quality team. So give me Clemson on the road here. There's a reason why they're a top 25 team. They're very good. They're still undefeated. And TCU, I will just say their schedule isn't the best. That's all I'll say, Coyle. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, I think this Clemson team too, Joe, is the real deal. And as you were saying, TCU is benefiting from arguably the worst non-conference schedule in the country. Like, if TCU doesn't run through Big 12 play with only, I say, especially if they lose this game too, if they lose like 7 or 8 games in the Big 12, I think they're going to be on the outside looking in, and everyone's going to be like, what? They only have 8 losses. This non-conference schedule, I don't know how Jamie Dixon put this together and thought, oh, this is a good non-conf to potentially get a bubble spot in the tournament. Their wins are over. They're undefeated still, so take that into account, 7-0. But their wins are over Southern, Nebraska, Omaha, UTRGV, Mississippi Valley State, who I believe is actually the worst team in college basketball according to the metrics.
I watched them play. They're that bad when they played UConn. They're terrible.
Houston Christian, Alcorn State, and then they have a 1-point win over Georgetown. I wasn't able to watch that game, but I heard on a couple different podcasts TCU had some egregious stepped on the line out of bounds. The game should have been over and they scored or something, or Georgetown got screwed out of basket, something like that, where they should have lost that game. But Georgetown is going to be a pretty bad, probably right there with DePaul at the bottom of the Big East team this year. So very bad TCU team. This is kind of a game where Clemson can come in there and smack them around a little bit. One thing that TCU does have going for them, they put up points, and it's not just because they've been playing these bad teams. Their pace of play is up there with one of the best in the country. So that's a tough matchup to have. But I watched this Clemson team last night against South Carolina from tip to finish. They were down early, double digits in the first half, and then they found a way to come back. They went up winning by about 6 or 7 points. I had a -8.5. I know they didn't cover, but still it was an impressive comeback victory in a rivalry game against a South Carolina team that's surprised and is undefeated too. I think they're legit. They got 3 guys that can consistently score the ball. They have a bunch of guys too that play their roles. I'm all in on them, and especially with Duke looking a little shaky, UNC is a question mark. Miami is a bit of a question mark after getting rolled by Kentucky. Clemson has a legit shot to win the ACC. I think they take care of TCU here. I'll go Clemson 80, TCU 72. So Clemson -1.5 and over 147.5. All right, we go to the Big 12 SEC now with a rivalry game. Mizzou at 7-2, at number 2, Kansas 8-1. 5:15 tip on ESPN. Kansas projected to win this one 77-63. I was surprised to see that. So we'll go Kansas -13.5, over under 139.5. We're seeing a lot of matchups, Joe, that were on the show this exact weekend last year. I remember this one on here too.
Yeah, I'm going to go Kansas to win, but not by more than 14 or more points. I'm going to take them 70-65. Rivalry games like this, and for those who don't know, back when they were both in the Big 12, this rivalry was up there in all sports with like the Iron Bowl, with Ohio State, Michigan. They used to play the football game where the Chiefs play, and there was at one point where it was number 2 versus number 3 in football. But there's a highlight that goes viral at least once a year of the last Big 12 game between Kansas and Missouri when they were both like top 5 teams, and it was crazy, like one of the craziest atmospheres like Allen Fieldhouse has like ever seen. That being said, I hate Hunter Dickinson so much. I just wanted that out there. Wanted to put it on the record. Had to get it out of my system. Hated him at Michigan. Hate him at Kansas. I think he's going to have a moment where he's going to either posterize someone or get a tough and one because he is really good, which makes it even worse. And he's going to flex, and I'm going to get so upset. I'm going to get so mad. Like the under, like Missouri to cover that spread. With the rivalry games, I mean, it's kind of just a principle. I take the under because I feel like it's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be a very physical game. And I'll take Missouri to cover. I think it's going to be a very exciting game. Definitely a game I'm going to be sitting on my couch for and try to watch from tip to finish.
Yeah, this is a one where I really like the total, Joe. If it's actually comes in at 139.5, I doubt it. I feel like it's going to be more so like a 145.5, but still, I'm going to take that regardless. I'm going to slam it, though, if it's 139.5. Like, this might be one of those plays where, like, your biggest play of the day type thing. I think we see a track meet style type matchup here. Last year when these two teams played, Kansas won 95-67 on the road, cleared that total easily. And the rosters are a bit different, as you said. Dickinson and Mizzou lost a couple guys, but Style wise, they're both still the same. Kansas is always going to be the same. They're going to be a team playing in the 70s each and every year, each and every game. And Mizzou loves to get up and down. They've scored 70 or more in 7 of their 9 games, and Kansas has scored 70 or more in 6 of their 9 games. If both of them just get right around that 70 mark, we're clearing this thing easily. At the end of the day, though, I do think the presence of your guy Hunter Dickinson and the Jayhawks having home court is just going to be too much for this Mizzou team to handle. I'm still expecting Mizzou to be competing for probably a seed between 6 and 11 this year, and Kansas, rightfully so, should be one of the teams favored to win the national title and go to the Final Four. So if you're really just starting to get into college basketball now with college football mostly behind us, this is a good game to tune into, as Kansas is a real deal squad, and I have them winning this one 85-70. I think they win this one pretty easily. I'll go Kansas minus 13.5 and over of 139.5. All right, another rivalry game on the docket here. One of the surprise teams in college basketball this year, and if you're not a college basketball junkie, you probably haven't watched them at all this year, or really even heard of it, and you'll probably be surprised to see them this high, but that's number 14 BYU at 8-0, playing at Utah, who's 6-2. A 7 o'clock tip off on our favorite channel, the Pac-12 Network. BYU 79-72 projected to win. So BYU minus 6.5, over under 150.5.
Yeah, that's the one of the few things that I'm actually looking forward to with the Pac-12 dying is the death of the Pac-12 network, because it's egregious that this game is on the Pac-12 network and it's on at 7 o'clock, which I was looking at the schedule. I forgot that the final for the NBA in-season tournament is Saturday night. So it seems like college basketball is trying to like stay away from that slot, because a lot of the good games kind of dip off right, around the 5, the Kansas game. That being said, though, I'm going Utah 68, BYU 67, taking Utah plus 6.5, under 150.5. Kind of the same reasoning I used in the last one. This is a huge rivalry. They had to stop playing this game for a couple of years because of the fights and like some of the actions that would happen at this rivalry. These two hate each other because it's like actual religious beliefs. BYU is the Mormon church. Utah's supported by like I forget which Christian church, but it's not the Mormons, and they hate each other, like truly hate each other. And it's hatred when BYU fans don't even drink and they're still absolutely hating another team and still getting in all these fights and causing all these problems. That being said, I think this is going to be a great atmosphere. Wish I didn't have to find some streaming site to watch this game, but I think Utah is going to win this game. Big upset here. Would be a big win for Utah going into Pac-12 play to get this under their belt if they want to make a run at the tournament.
Yeah, both of these teams are looking like tournament caliber teams out of the gate. It's been a couple years since we've seen Utah kind of relevant in college basketball. Looks like they're starting to get back there. Keep forgetting, though, BYU in the Big 12 now. They're sitting at 8-0 and 14th in the AP poll, and they'll have plenty of opportunities to prove that they could be a top 4 seed in the tournament come March. BYU is also a perfect 8-0 against the spread to start the year. That's the best in the country. Obviously, we talked about earlier with Arizona being 7-0, but BYU has played that extra game so far, 8-0 against the spread. And they're ranked 6th at KenPom. I know a lot of college basketball analysts take that into account. The tournament committee takes that stuff into account. So this is a legit squad that even the computer models are believing in big time. Utah has been pretty solid in their own regard, as we touched on, 6-2, 40th at KenPom, and a pretty solid 5-3 against the spread. So while it might not be the sexiest matchup on paper, and as we were saying, it might be hard for some people to actually watch this game, I think it could actually be sneakily the best game on Saturday. I'm going to take BYU to win, but I will go Utah to cover despite BYU being perfect against the spread. It feels like they might be due for a bit of a slip up there. But this is a rivalry matchup. I expect Utah to be able to keep this one close. And like you said, I wouldn't be surprised to see them win it outright. But for the last time in a non-conference setting, this will be a fun one. But next year, going to the Big 12, it's going to be fun seeing them all play up against each other. All right, we go to Sunday now, where we have 2 games. Those were our 8 Saturday games. I'll touch on these ones quickly, as the NFL is still dominating Sunday, but this should be a good one. If your team's playing at 4, like me, my team's playing at 8 o'clock. Joe, you could maybe get out of the Jets game and turn on some college basketball. You have you have Colorado, who's unranked, but at 6-2, playing. It's a neutral site game. I believe it's at the Barclays Center in New York and Brooklyn. Number 15, Miami, who's 7-1, 2 o'clock tip on ESPN2. Colorado projected to win this one 80-74. So Colorado minus 5.5, over under 153.5.
Yeah, I will not be subjecting myself to Jets Texans this weekend.
I have the Jets winning. I took them and pick them. I took the Jets to win.
The
The
Jets are
line, the
due.
line has moved too. It was 5.5. It's down to 3.5.
The
That's
Jets
the
are due
state.
for a stupid win.
They cashed my under bet last week.
The freest bet of all time. Just like the Jets team total
Yeah.
unders. Put up 8 points on the Falcons. Are like, and then you guys in the group chat with the Eagles, dude, the season's over. 10-2. I'm watching Tim Boyle start 2 games. Anyways, back to college basketball. I'm gonna go Miami 88, Colorado 84. Miami plus the 5.5, over 153.5. Loved taking the overs with Miami last year. I'm gonna do it again this year in the first show. Just feels right, feels good. But that being said, I don't really know a lot about these teams. I know Miami had a big loss at Kentucky earlier, but they're coming off a non-conference win. They got to smack Notre Dame, let their frustrations out. Notre Dame basketball might be one of the worst Power 5 teams this year, or Power 6 because of the Big East, excuse me. But Miami does have a win over Kansas State. Pretty solid win. They beat Georgia, Power 5 team. They beat UCF, who's going to take some getting used to, but now a Power 5 team. And Colorado, like I said, I don't know a lot about these two teams. I just think this game I didn't even know this game was in Brooklyn. Never mind. I take it back. I thought it was going to be at home. Still think Miami's going to win. I don't know if I really trust Colorado yet. I think Miami's still a pretty good team that could, if they figure it out, make another run in the ACC.
Would you describe yourself as like an average gambler?
I would say so, yeah.
Because you said taking Miami over, like you did a lot last year. So my new favorite website can back up some stats like that. Miami, for the over-under since 2022, 22, 22, and 1.
That's awesome. I feel like, though, whenever we would do the picks, like when we'd have Miami on, I feel like they'd go over. I remember it was that one week I went like 26-4. They played like Wake Forest, I think.
Uh-huh.
It was like a 90-something, 80-something game. I loved it. But yes, no, I'm not a good gambler. So
no, I was just saying it's funny because I remember last year Miami's tournament run, they were putting up a lot of points, and then they ran into UConn, who shut them down. I'm going to take Miami as well. Miami is kind of a peculiar team. They beat K-State and Georgia. I'm expecting K-State to be in the tournament, but more so a bubble team, unlike last year. And Georgia is kind of right there as well, where they might be fighting for a tournament spot, but two teams that are most likely going to be bubble teams. So haven't really got a good win, or a great win. Their biggest test was Kentucky, and they got rolled. So I'm intrigued to see how they fare in this game. And the same with the Colorado team. They were receiving a lot of hype throughout the offseason. They could win the Pac-12, and they don't have a quality win to their name yet either. So I would be shocked if I'm going to be shocked if Colorado is a 5.5 point favorite. Miami might be one of those computer tricker, like they're not a metrics type team and they get screwed with that. But I do think Miami wins this one outright. If it is 5.5, I definitely like to take them plus 5.5 there. I'm still buying stock in this team long term with their guards. I really like Wooga Poplar, Philly guy, and then Nigel Pack, and then Norchad Amir down low. He's one of the better big men, probably top 2 or 3 in the ACC. So they get better and better as the year goes on with Larinaga, and I really like this Miami team still. So I'm going to go Miami 75, Colorado 70. So I'm going to take the upset. I'll go Miami plus 5.5, and I'll fade you, Joe. I'm going to go with the under of 153.5 there.
Smart.
All right. Our final game on Sunday, 4:00 tip on ESPN2. You have Memphis at 6-2 at number 21 Texas A&M, who's 7-1. A&M projected to win this one 80-68. So A&M minus 11.5 and over under 147.5.
11.5, I guess, because a lot of points kind of been, my theme of the show. I'm going to take Memphis to cover that 11.5. I'm going to take the over 147.5. Once again, kind of just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping that it sticks with these totals. Nope, 148. I guess, I got it right. Let's go. Awesome. I think the Aggies going to win a close one at home, 75-73. Texas A&M was a pretty solid team to start off the year. They have road wins at Ohio State, at SMU. They beat Penn State at a neutral court. They got beat by FAU, who FAU is going to be a very interesting team. I'm excited to see when Memphis has to play them in conference. This is an important game for Memphis. The American Athletic got a lot weaker, especially in basketball, losing Houston, who's a top 5 team, losing UCF, who was over the past couple of years, more decent in basketball, losing Cincinnati. Memphis really can't afford, they play A&M in this game on Sunday. Then next Saturday, they host Clemson. Really need to win one of those two, maybe both, going into conference play because there's not going to be a lot of opportunities. I'm looking at their schedule now. They don't play FAU until Sunday, February 25th, and then they end their season at FAU. I think, the Americans trying to make that like the new Houston rivalry with Memphis. But
this Memphis non-conference schedule has been no joke, though. And like you said, they got a gauntlet still coming up too.
Oh yeah, no, I do agree. They definitely scheduled, with that in mind, that the American is.
I don't know why they didn't go to the Big 12.
I feel like with the way realignment is,
it'll happen in a couple of years.
I wouldn't be shocked if they get in, or the ACC taking SMU over Memphis. I feel like it's crazy, but we can do a whole week of podcasts on realignment. But yeah, that kind of, not that I had a big train of thought. A&M, though, their two losses were, to FAU, and then they lost big to Virginia, even though it was, I think, like a 59-47 game. It's a typical, like, Virginia swallow you up and not let you get going. I feel like Virginia is a tough matchup for anyone in the country. That being said, I think A&M is going to pick up a quality non-conference win here with Memphis.
I watched this Memphis team play last night. I had the two TVs set up going in my room. I've stole my sister's TV since she went to school, so I've been benefiting from that. But I had that on, and I had that Clemson South Carolina game on. Both really good games. But that Memphis VCU last night, really, they impressed me. And I have watched A&M a few times, and I think this is just going to be a very good game. It might be one of those things, red zone on the main TV and have this on the second TV. Both teams might not have the most skilled guys, but they have athletes and guys compete on the defensive end. It should be a really fun back and forth battle, a chippy type of game, I think. I can kind of see this being like a game where A&M by season's end like a 6 seed, Memphis like an 11 seed. This kind of matchup, excuse me, I had the hiccups tonight, reminds me of, but in the 20 down the line. I'm going to go with A&M, though, to win. They had an easy win over DePaul the other night, and Memphis, as I was touching on, had a really tough game with VCU that they wound up beating in overtime last night on Wednesday. So they're going to be a little tired. I think that was a battle, and they might kind of feel the fatigue come this game on Sunday. I think they're going to get out to a bit of a slow start, let A&M kind of get a little comfortable lead between like 6 to 10 points, and they kind of keep that cushion for most of the game. So I'm going to go A&M 74, Memphis 70. Memphis kind of makes a late charge at it. But if it is 11.5, I really like that number there. I'll take Memphis plus 11.5 and under 147.5. All right, well, that'll do it for our first episode of the college basketball podcast here on Beef Up Front for the first weekend that we're really going all in. And, Joe, we somehow kept 10 games underneath our normal time of usually 40 to 45 minutes for college football, where we do, only 5 games and then our dog of the day and lock of the week. So good time there. Quick hit in on a bunch. Did our first live stream of this as well. So excited to see how many people tuned in, and if it went well, maybe go back to it next week and give out some more plays and stuff. But anything else, Joe, before we head out?
Cool. Like I've said at the beginning of the show, as always, thanks for having me on. Everyone, if you're watching live, thank you. If you watch it all, thank you. Support Beef. Oh, I pointed the wrong way. I pointed towards you on the screen, but it's opposite. Support Beef. Support him. He's doing a great job. With Beef Up Front, Pick Swap Media, working with Fox the Gambler. Check all of the respective shows out for those networks and stuff. Please support Cole. Like I said, has been doing a great job. He's been letting me just spew bullshit for the past 4 years on the show. I've had a lot of fun doing it. Please continue to support. Now this is one of the most exciting times of the year. From now till the end of March Madness, you have all the bowl games, you have the college football playoff, NFL, the regular season is really getting important. You have the playoffs coming up in the NFL. And then obviously, you have wall-to-wall college basketball on the weekend. So one thing I did really miss, starting at 12 o'clock, you can watch 5 games until, the midnight slate hits or the 10 o'clock slate hits. It's fantastic. So this is a great time of year. Stay tuned in to Beef Up Front. We'll have you covered with everything you need for college basketball.
All right, Joe, you said it best. Thank you, everyone, as always, for listening. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk next week.